everyone. Good afternoon, good evening, wherever you're coming in from. We're going to give it just 1 minute here to let people get on Zoom, and let me get our screen figured out. Welcome everybody to Tuesday Talks. We're excited to have some UC schools here today. And I know a lot of people are interested in the UC system, but may not know tons about how it all works. So we're gonna have fun with that today. So a few nuts and bolts before we dive in. Once again, we are here on Zoom. And so if you have questions, you should ask them right away, right when they come up, because that way we can consolidate and make sure we get to as many of those questions as we can. And they might be covered in the presentation, but they might not. So go ahead and ask them right when they come to you. And for those of you on YouTube, you can also ask us questions there, and we'll make sure to get to those as well. And so we're really excited to have you here. I know that some of you have listened to different UC talks before, and you know some of these wonderful colleagues that are here, and some of you may not. And so we're going to get to know each other a little bit through this weird venue. But feel free to type in the chat, type in the questions. And without further ado, I'm going to let my colleagues just introduce themselves real quickly. So we'll just go in the order of the logos. How about that?
That sounds good. I know what that means. It's me. Hi, everybody. My name is Mitsuko Leonard. I work as the Director of Recruitment for UC Davis.
Hello, good evening, everybody. This is Jun Wang, and I'm from UC Riverside, and nice to have everybody.
Hi there. My name is Aaron Brown, and I'm an Associate Director for UC San Diego.
Hi, everybody. Good evening. I'm Beatrice Atkinson-Myers. I am the Associate Director of Admissions at UC Santa Cruz.
This is Jun Wang, and I'm from UC Riverside. All right. I guess it's my honor and a privilege to introduce you to UC. The best and the largest public research university system in the world. You know, we're so proud to be part of the UC family, and we are extremely proud to share our universities in front of you today. As you can see from this golden map, we are from the state of California, and we think in our mind is the best state in California, in the state, in the world probably. You know, there's it's golden for many reasons, right? It has the beautiful golden beach, it has beautiful golden mountains, and probably have a lot of gold in many ways, intellectual for sure. And we are proud of the UC system for many reasons. First of all, we're 10 campuses, not one, not two, but 10. We're spread around across the California state, the beautiful state. We have 5 campuses in the north and 5 in the south. Although the map is showing 9 campuses. That's because only 9 of them offering undergraduate degree, which is relevant to you today. There's one missing, is the UC San Francisco, which is primary medical school. So there are some famous names among ours, and there are some to be discovered today. And we have UC Berkeley and UCLA, which both have more than 100 years history. And then we have others which all have uniqueness and brilliance in research and other areas of research. So we are the top of the pyramid of the public research university system for many reasons, right? One is research, of course. That's who we are, where we are. We're a national university, which means we also offer PhD, master, and various undergraduate programs. And not just one undergraduate programs across all 10 campuses. We actually offer over 800 degree programs in 160 academic disciplinary areas. Among 10 campuses, we also have over 280,000 students and 227,000 faculty and staff. Over 2 million alumni spread around the whole world. You know, every single corner of the world, you will find one of our alumni be able to assist you and facilitate your career goals and answering questions. We also have 64 Nobel laureates, and we contribute over $46 billion to the state economy. So give you a scale, this is like a nation. This is like the biggest university you can ever imagine. And also, we are the best in many ways. 1 out of 10 public journal article published in the world come from UC system. That gives you an idea of how strong we are in terms of research and how much we contribute to the world. So today, among our colleagues, we present 4 out of the 10 campuses, both coming from the Northern California and Southern California. And we want to introduce you a little bit more about the UC applications, and you may have a lot of questions about that. So one uniqueness about the UC application, as we said earlier, we are family, right? So what family does is we share a lot of things. Not only we share the similar curriculums, a similar major setup, similar a lot of things, right? Names, diploma. But the most important thing is we share the common application among all 10 campuses. One application, 9 campuses for undergraduate degrees. So that makes students extremely easy to access and also avoid a lot of confusions. So all you have to do is go to the one link, admissions.universityofcalifornia.edu, and you will find the application, one application for 9 campuses. And there's a very generic timeline you have to follow. The good news is the application is already open. August 1st, you can already start your application, which means you can start filling it out, put your names, put your information, decide the schools, and each school may have a set of requirements and have a lot of details they want to learn from you. And you can report your test scores. And of course, these are all self-reported scores at this moment. And then by November, you can start submitting your application. And noticing we have a fixed application submission window, which means that you can click that submission button as early as November 1st, as late as November 30th. So once you submit, and that's it, right? Then later on, all you have to do is keep on updating your profile, make sure you're sending your test results. You will get notice, depends on the campus, but always between February and March. And by May 1st, that's when you decide which campus you want to go to, and you choose one of the 9 campuses, and then you will be admitted, and you will be able to choose where you want to attend. And usually we have a wait list, depending on the campus, between May and June, but that rarely varies, depends on your situation. Next, please. So, considering you're coming from a international high school, you're coming from a different state, it depends on your curriculum, depends on how your instruction was delivered. You may or may not require some English language tests. So if your classes or your curriculum was delivered other than English, and for the past 3 years of your high school, and you will be required to provide English proficiency requirements. So this year, there's some similarities than the previous years, which is TOEFL and IELTS are the same. We're still accepting TOEFL of 80 minimum, IELTS at 6.5, and no sub-scores in that regards. And what's new this year is we started accepting Duolingo, which is very new to us and to some of you as well, but it has a very good accessibility for some of you in front of the computer and may not be able to go take the test. So the minimum score on that is 115 for the UC campuses, only for this year. So do take advantage of that. So if you also had the privilege to take certain tests, for example, ACT, SAT, and you have met the language requirements for the writing component, that also meets the requirement. And if you have AP English, of 3, 4, 5, or IB standard level or high level of 6, 7, or high level at 5 or above, that also waives your English language requirements. And if your instruction was delivered in English for the past 3 years, at least I know for UC Riverside, we also waive your requirements. So that is something to learn, and definitely always check each campus's website for the detailed English requirements and make sure you meet all the language requirements because sometimes each campus may require a little bit different, but generically it's the same. Next, I will pass it on to my colleague to introduce you more about the comprehensive review.
Thank you so much. Hi, everybody. Okay, so one of the most important things to understand about the University of California is that every one of our campuses uses a comprehensive review. So what is comprehensive review? What does that mean? What it really means is that we understand each of you is more than just the marks that you have in school, just the classes that you take. We understand that you're a complete individual, a person who has many interests, who's been engaged in many things. And really what we're looking for and what we want to understand from the application is how you can bring that energy, that interest, that curiosity, that engagement into our campuses and really think about how you can contribute to the intellectual and the personality of each of our different campuses. So because each of us uses this comprehensive review process, there are these factors that we're looking at. So there's generally speaking 14, and they are academic. So about tends to be about 50% of them are academic, and about 50% of them are going to be about who you are outside of a classroom, what else you care about, what else you've been doing with your time. So I'm going to just kind of quickly run through some of these to give you a sense of what that means for us. And we can always answer more of your questions too. And so type those questions into the chat. Okay, so grade point average for us, that means we're really looking at your marks. Specifically, we're looking at your marks that are taking place during your second year of secondary school and your third year. So what we consider to be your sophomore and your junior year. We look at all 4 years though. So don't, we look at everything. We look at all the courses you're taking, including the courses that you're going to be taking in your final year, in your senior year. So really trying to get a complete picture, but the actual calculation of the GPA is going to be during those middle terms of your schooling. Test scores, we're going to talk about a little bit more, but for right now, just know that if you're taking the standard 10s or the standard 12s, if you're taking IB courses, if you're taking AP classes, if you're taking A levels, we're going to look at those. We are going to use those in order to make our assessment as a part of our admissions criteria that we're considering. We look really closely at your type of curriculum. What classes are you taking? How challenging are those courses? And we're going to really look at it in the context of your school. So I think that's something that's really important to understand is that, the University of California gets hundreds of thousands of applications, which is just amazing. And it's because we are that #1 public research system in the world. That's why. But what that means is that we're really trying to look at you individually in your school. What could you take? What was your curriculum? And then what did you take advantage of? We're not going to compare you to students around the world. That's not what we're doing. We're really looking at you in your school and what you could take advantage of specifically. We do look at those other criteria that are not about the classroom though. And this is where we really get to know you more as an individual and where the personal insight questions and the additional comments section of the UC application is so critical. It's really always what we say, sometimes a missed opportunity for students, where students don't tell us enough or maybe don't explain enough about who they are and what they're engaged in. So I'll give you a quick example, kind of. Say you're a student who's involved in an educational program, or you're doing, let's say, a global UN program, something like that. And some student may put down participated in Model UN, team leader. Great, that sounds like a really cool thing. But that's all you told me. Participated, I'm a leader. It's so different from a student who says participated in Model UN, went to my district level competition, was the team leader, and came up with most of the policy proposals for my team, mentored younger team members. That tells me so much more about what that person did. So that's what we mean when we say sometimes it can be a missed opportunity with the application when you don't tell us enough in those personal insight questions and in those activities and awards section. Next slide, please. So I kind of jumped ahead a little bit, but those are some of the tips and recommendations. So one thing, as June pointed out, is we are literally 9 undergraduate campuses, and each one of us is just a little bit different, feels a little bit different, has different areas, different majors that you can explore. So I cannot encourage you enough. Please, please, please do your research. Look beyond the big names. We all know who they are. They're great. They're wonderful. We love UCLA. We love UCB Berkeley. Don't get me wrong. We just all think our campus is better. So definitely research us. You know, we all have virtual tours. We all are doing a really wide variety of different presentations and just about our campuses, opportunities for you to talk to our current students, hear from our own faculty. So definitely make sure to check us out. As I was saying, keep an activity log, kind of keep track of what you've been doing. And I know in the time of COVID, there might be a lot of anxiety and questions from students saying, well, all those things I used to do, I can't do anymore. Think about what you can do. What can you still do? What have you still been doing? Have you been engaging in different online areas? Have you been trying to still connect with your classmates and teachers while you've been in COVID? We know it's a global phenomenon. We're all dealing with this, but just keep thinking about, what did I do? What can I still do? And tell us about that. So that's what we mean when we say talk about activities awards and being really thoughtful about what we're saying and what you're using, and not missing those great opportunities to tell us a little bit more about what you've been engaged in. If you have taken IB diploma or IGCSE or the standard 12 10s and 12s, make sure to use the external exam section, put in your marks there. Check all your information carefully. As June said, the application is open now, but guess what? Over 90% of our applications come in on November 30th. So don't be that person. Don't be that kid. Just, you know, take your time. This is one application for the #1 public research institution in the world. Don't you want to take your time? Don't you want to think about what you want to say? Maybe check your things, go back, look at things, make sure you got it all right. Don't try and do it from memory. Make sure you have your unofficial records with you and you're not trying to translate anything. Just enter it as it appears on your official records. We have many, many different evaluators who've been looking at international records for years, who have extensive training, who are very, very knowledgeable about different educational systems from around the world. So trust us, just put in what's on your official record and you'll be fine. Can't wait to read your application.
All right, so now we'll transition to talking a couple slides about our personal insight question, PIQs, which are an important part of the UC application and allow us to learn more about you. So want to provide with some tips for you to consider as you prepare your responses to those PIQs. And these are a bit different than kind of a personal statement that you might use to apply to other universities that you might see on the common application if you're applying to other schools in the US. And so we want to kind of highlight what they are in the context unique to UC. So there are 8 different prompts for you to choose from, and you as a first-year applicant must respond to 4 of those 8, and it's 350 words per response. So again, it's about that kind of same length almost as a standard personal statement, but across a number of different smaller personal insight questions. All the questions are and given equal consideration. That's a common kind of misconception, is surely there must be some questions that are better to answer than others, or ones that I need to answer to be admitted, right? And no, any single one of those 8 absolutely fine. So choose the questions that kind of best reflect your experiences and your individual circumstances and are most relevant to you. Make sure to give specific kind of concrete examples to support your points. Don't just give us a long list of your accomplishments. Give context to your activities by providing thoughtful examples in PIQs. We'll see an example of this actually on the next slide. We were just talking about the activities section, right? And so this is where it's helpful for you to perhaps expand on some of the more kind of important activities that you did during your time in high school, right? And kind of let us know beyond what you in that section. Make sure that you proofread and edit and get feedback from others. You would think that this is, self-explanatory, right? But every year we definitely some PIQs where it's clear that the student may not have followed the detail and the advice on this slide. So make sure that you give it to parents or friends or counselors in your school, most importantly, if you have them, and they can kind of help give you feedback and make sure that your voice is coming through. You might want to then copy and paste that text into the response and then save it as plain text to avoid kind of some formatting issues that might crop up. So just kind of some small things to keep in mind. Make sure that you're giving us new information that we can't find in other sections of the application. So don't simply repeat things that we may have already seen elsewhere. Don't copy and paste lines from your activities section straight into the PIQs. This is your opportunity to, again, tell us something new that we haven't already learned elsewhere. We cannot learn elsewhere in the application. This is also not creative writing, just another piece of advice. So you might want to avoid kind of cliches or poems, scene setting, quotes, etc. 350 words isn't really a lot. So use your space to tell us about you to answer the question instead of showing off that kind of creative writing ability, right? These are different kind of responses than that traditional essay or personal statement. And so if you use up most of that space, setting the scene with your beautiful descriptive language about that dark and stormy night, well, we've then lost the opportunity to actually kind of get to know about you and kind of the crux of that response that we're hoping for, because the 350 words are done. We don't require letters of recommendation. In fact, do not request them, and many of us will not read them. So we just don't have the time with the volume of applications that we receive to look at that additional piece of information. So we need you to talk about yourself in these PIQs. This is the best avenue in which you can do that. So make sure that you are the main kind of content and topic of your personal insight questions. Don't write about other people more than yourself, which is something that we see fairly commonly. We love, obviously, that you have great family support and role models, but we don't want to necessarily think about admitting them. We're thinking about admitting you. And so make sure that you, again, are the focus of your responses to these questions. Really kind of think about this like an interview almost. So that kind of those 8 questions, in essence, are interview questions. And if you were sitting down with one of the 4 of us, how might you respond to that question? So make sure that that's kind of the lens through which perhaps you're approaching this, and that can be helpful, I think, when students consider their answers. And lastly, there is an additional comments section available in the application, and that's where you can provide sort of additional clarification or kind of clarify important details on the application, describe anything that you haven't had the opportunity to include. It shouldn't, though, be a continuation of one of your PIQs, continued below. That's not what this is for. But it's where you could perhaps describe sort of any unusual family circumstances, anything that kind of impacted your educational plan or history, things where we might have a question on the application. You can do us a favor and answer it for us right there using that additional comment section. So here, this slide shows two responses to the personal insight question discussing a student's leadership, right? And how they have shown leadership during their time in high school. So on the left, we see one that is considered more of kind of like a missed opportunity, right? So overall, I mean, it's well written. There's no kind of concerns in terms of getting through it, in terms of the content, but we kind of just see a lot of broad statements. Things like, you know, being a leader wasn't as easy as it sounded. Everything I thought could go wrong went wrong. But they don't actually explain what any of those things are, right? They could have provided additional details on their role, maybe explaining what their idea of leadership is, what to them is leadership. They could have elaborated on what went wrong instead of just saying everything that went wrong, right? That kind of cliche. Well, wait, what was that? And then how did you potentially fix it, right? Those kinds of follow-up questions that we might have in an interview setting, they're not here in this response. They just didn't really provide much context about their experience. They focused really more, it seems, on kind of just the structure of it, almost like an essay, filling in words for their own sake, rather than on the content and how we might best learn about, you know, you as a student and what leadership means to you. Whereas the example on the right could be one where we would think this is some really a value added when we're looking at the response to insight question. So the student goes from kind of broad context to very specific details about their process. And importantly, they give us those kind of specific concrete examples on how they specifically made their community a better place. So if we look at some of those highlighted statements, that's where you can see some of those kind of action-oriented items, right? So I met with representatives from community organizations, drafted a resolution, moved to propose the resolution. And they showed us exactly what they were doing with this organization. And that response then is kind of clear and concise, direct. They centered their self in the response, and we learned more about them and kind of what their leadership, the impact that had on their communities. So really encourage you all to, again, spend time on this now. The questions are up and available. The application, as we just said, is up and available. You don't want to start writing these personal insight questions the day before the application is due and just type them into the text box variously and hope that's going to be okay. So, you know, use the time that you have now and start crafting these responses over the next couple of months, right? So that you can provide us with those great answers, those clear examples that will really help us as admission officers reading your application to get to know who you are, which is really the goal of this whole process, right? Is for us to use every piece of the application to get to know a little bit more about you so we can make an informed decision on your application. Lastly, the link down there at the bottom of the slide is our personal insight question worksheet, and it's available on the UC admission website. It kind of gives you some great resources as you're thinking about starting the PIQs. So feel free to head over there at some point in the next few weeks and kind of play around, see what you see there, and get some of your questions answered.
Okay, so here in the state of California, there have been a lot of things happening. And sometimes, you know, when you live here, you feel like this is the center of the world, but just in case it's not the center of your world, because the world is big, just a few updates about what's been going on with the standardized tests. Back in May, the regents decided that, you know, we are going to start phasing out the use of our SATs and ACTs. And by 2023, the plan is to go with no exams, at least not those exams. But for the interim, the plan was to allow the different UC campuses to use them if they wished. As of, I think it was 6 days ago, there has been placed a preliminary injunction basically saying UC campuses cannot use SATs or ACTs for admission decisions, nor can they use those exams for scholarship decisions. So that's brand new. It is brand new for us. It kind of feels like, you know, wading in the deep end of the pool right now. We're trying to figure out what we're going to be doing next. But please rest assured that the people here, the people reading your applications, we work in the Office of Admissions, right? Our job is not to find ways to keep students out. Our job is to find ways to get students to come to campus, to admit them. So while we will not be using SATs and ACTs for those decisions as part of the comprehensive review, we will be using everything else that's been outlined by Erin and Bea already. And I cannot stress enough how important it is to try to be able to reflect your true self on that application. Filling it out now is also going to allow you to come up with the questions you're not able to answer. You're trying to figure out the nuance of that application. Each of our campuses will be doing a lot of virtual events, including workshops on how to fill out the application, tips and tricks, real detailed stuff. So do start early and don't worry too much about what's going on in the courts right now. Focus on the things that you can control, which is, filling out that application and developing yourself to be that student that we really, really want to admit. Also, just remember that while we are looking for different things in our admitted class, you as students and counselors supporting students should be also thinking about that fit. It's not just one way. It's not just about what UC Davis or UC San Diego wants from that applicant. It's what the applicant wants from the campus. So remember that when you're applying, you should be applying to those schools that make the best sense, that fit you academically, fit you environmentally, socially, all of those things that really help you become a better person, academic, and ultimately achieve your professional goals. So with that said, I'm going to lead into introducing who we are as campuses, as different personalities. Many of you may have, well, a few of you I know already have heard me talk about UC Davis before. Of the 9 sisters in the same family, we are kind of that campus that is much more relaxed, subdued, in the sense that we're in a college town. We live in a community that gives us a nice bear hug every day. The campus is the biggest of the UC campuses, I think just thousands and thousands of acres. But the town and the campus of students is 31,000 when you throw in all the professional students and the master's degree students and all those. The campus is huge, but the town, the population is made up of people like me. We work for the university, we teach at the university, we work at a boutique, that serve the community for the university. So in total, the whole of the city has only about 68,000 people. So you can tell that if the students don't exist there and step up and really participate in life on campus and off campus, there's not a whole lot going on, right? The students, they grow our food, they prepare the food, and then they, feed our students. They drive our buses. If the students didn't drive the buses around town, around campus, there would be no bus system. It really very much is a strong community, but because it's a small town, the students create a lot of that action for themselves. It is going to be very different from a campus that is in a very large city like UCLA. But again, that goes back to the idea of fit. Our students are super collaborative, they're friendly, they're super smart, but they're not competitive with each other as much as they are competitive with themselves. And for that, I find it to be a lovely, lovely campus that I really enjoy spending time in. Next.
All right, it's me again. Mrs. June Wang from UC Riverside, and thank you so much for learning more about UCR. So I'm a UCR graduate. We are from Southern California in this beautiful city called Riverside. So in case you don't know where Riverside is, looking at that little tiny map, we're actually only 1 hour to the east of Los Angeles and 1 hour north of San Diego, and 1 hour south of the beautiful Snow Mountains, and 1 hour west to the beautiful National Joshua Tree Park and Palm Springs and Coachella. And, you know, so we think we are 1 hour to the world, right? So we are so close and so convenient, accessible. You get that suburban feeling, very safe, very convenient, and a lot of cultural diversity, a lot of entertainment, rich history going on over here. So why UC Riverside? We are ranked #1 for many things. And among that, we are #1 for social mobility. We're number 12 for best value, number 16 for best public university in United States. We're so proud of our accomplishments, and UC Riverside is proud of our commitment to our undergraduate education, as well as our commitment to each individual international student's success. We are so personal, and we want to know every single student's interest, the career path, and also want to be able to help you to find that first internship, first job, and first undergraduate research opportunity at our campus. So UCR was founded because of Naval Orange. So we are actually the birthplace of Naval Orange. As you can see, the gigantic orange statue on our campus. And among that, we have 1,400 different kind of orange trees, you know, from all around the world located right here on our campus. So you get free oranges year round and the best orange juice, I would think, you know. So besides that, we also have state-of-art facilities. We are actually a very rich history campus. The campus has been established for over 100 years, joining UC for more than 66 years. But we're a new campus in another sense. So we're building a lot of new things on campus. The classrooms are new, the gym is new, you know, the research facility is new and still building. So as you can imagine, this is the growing mode campus, and we want to invite you to join us to grow together. So we also offer a big scholarship to our non-resident international students, up to $4,500 per quarter, renewable throughout your 4 years. So that's $13,500, almost 1/3 of your tuition can be waived through scholarship. It's merit-based scholarship. You don't have to apply separately and you will get it. So it's very, very good benefit to our international students. So do take advantage, do consider UCR, and go Highlanders. Thank you.
Okay, so UC San Diego. We are located just north of the city of San Diego in La Jolla, California, and right next to the beach. In that photo there in the middle of the slide, that's the Scripps Institute of Oceanography and the Scripps Pier, where a lot of oceanographic research is conducted. That is literally right down the hill from campus. So up to the right there, the top of that hill is where our campus is located. So in addition to world-class faculty, you know, top caliber research, it's a pretty lovely place to live. And we do have about 19% of our undergraduate students are international students. India specifically is our second most represented country behind China. And we get a lot of applicants and students from the Middle East as well. One of the things that's unique to UC San Diego, or relatively unique, is the college system. And we do have 7 now colleges. Our 7th college opened this fall, welcoming new students for the first time. So it's a way to kind of take our larger campus of more than 30,000 undergraduates and bring it down into a kind of a smaller feel, right? So you're living with students in your college for your first couple of years. Your advising is in your college. There's their own history and traditions and dining. Students can study any major in any one of our colleges. They kind of all have their own feel, their own kind of general education curriculum, the kind of core courses you take your first couple of years and alongside courses in your major. So a way to kind of just make our campus community perhaps a smaller, more manageable place. I really want to, in terms of majors, we have, just like many of our colleagues across the UC, most everything in which you're interested. Our popular majors, especially with international students, tend to be economics, biology, and most of our engineering disciplines, specifically things like computer science and our mechanical and aerospace engineering. And also want to highlight the research activity being done on campus. I think that's something that really attracts students to UC San Diego. This is not just faculty and graduate students. Our undergraduates are actively involved in research. Every year we have more than $1 billion of sponsored research conducted on campus, which puts us in the top 10 in the United States for research expenditures. And that research really leads to real world applications that students are involved in with kind of serious economic impact. As an example, more than 1,000 companies use or used technology created at UC San Diego. And kind of total estimated kind of sales of UC San Diego related companies where research was started on campus is $32 billion. So lots of ways for you to kind of get that real world impact after studying on our campus.
Save the best for last. So UC Santa Cruz. So UC Santa Cruz is a really unique, I would think, a very special place. It's very different than the University of California in that it doesn't look like any university you could ever imagine. My campus is 2,000 acres of redwood forest that overlooks the entire Pacific Ocean. It is really what you could imagine to be the best of both worlds in terms of an environment that is both safe, friendly, beautiful, right next to the Pacific Ocean in the California redwoods, the famous California redwoods, and a top tier education. So I want to tell you a little bit about how we were founded actually. We were founded by Dean McHenry and Clark Kerr, who were two of the founders of the University of California as a system, actually. And these two individuals, you know, they came from overseeing UC Berkeley, UCLA, and knowing these tier 1, R1 research institutions, but thinking those institutions can be really big and really overwhelming for students and maybe lack the more personal experience that they each had individually when they attended university, attending Swarthmore University. So they purposely created UC Santa Cruz to try and merge a liberal arts, a small liberal arts college experience like a Swarthmore with a tier 1 research institution into one campus in the University of California. And what got created in 1965 is UC Santa Cruz. And what's special about that is we really do focus on undergraduate students. We have about 19,000 students total on our campus, which is fairly small for the University of California. And of that, around 18,000 are undergraduate students. So we have a really small graduate population, and that opens up opportunities for our undergraduates that are really special and really unique and let them work closely with their faculty in a much more personal way. A couple other great things to know about UC Santa Cruz is we are around 75 miles away from San Francisco. So if you imagine you fly into San Francisco, maybe SFO, you start to drive south about an hour down the 101, you pass by Boeing, you pass by NASA, you pass by Google, you pass by Facebook, you drive over a mountain, a beautiful mountain full of forests, drive into Santa Cruz, and there is the Santa Cruz Beach Boardwalk and our beautiful campus. Obviously, all of those wonderful names I just mentioned are opportunities for our students. So our students really do engage both within the city of Santa Cruz and then with all of the amazing partners that exist in Silicon Valley. And I do think that is something that's really special too about our university is the opportunities for students to do internships at the Googles and Facebooks of the world. We have over 70 different majors. Students don't have to decide their major before they come to UC Santa Cruz. You actually have 2 years, so you can be undecided, undeclared for everything, but I bet you can probably guess, but computer science. Computer science is our one major which you have to put on your application to be admitted to that major for UC Santa Cruz. And that's just because we're doing so many inventive and interesting things that the major is highly popular and it's more competitive. But we also have a great program called Computer Science Computer Game Design. So anyone out there who maybe likes playing video games, maybe thinks, wow, it'd be cool to make this a job. Yeah, you can do that. And in fact, UC Santa Cruz was the first campus to have computer science game design as a major at our campus. So that's one of our most popular majors. Other really popular majors, though, are marine science, marine biology. As I said, we're about 1.5 miles from the Pacific Ocean. We have our own long marine lab where we do research on a wide variety of environmental issues and conservation issues. So for students who are really interested in doing marine sciences, you are literally right there. It's an amazing opportunity for students to get involved and get involved as early as their first year at UC Santa Cruz. I think the other really special things about my campus, aside from the deer who you see as you walk to class every day, is the fact that we also have a residential college system. So not to be confusing, but like San Diego, UC Santa Cruz has a residential college system where students are affiliated and living in these smaller communities all around our campus. There are little neighborhoods within our campus, and they really provide you, again, more of that feel of a liberal arts university in a tier 1 research institution. The biggest difference between UC Santa Cruz and UC San Diego, both are great, is that for UC Santa Cruz, it's not at all got its own general education curriculum. So it doesn't matter what your major is, where you are on campus, everybody takes the same general education curriculum for UC Santa Cruz. So that's probably the biggest difference between UC Santa Cruz and UC San Diego. Last thing I'll mention is about money. It's always important. We understand that. UC Santa Cruz also has our own Undergraduate Dean's Award for international students. So it awards students up to $40,000 over 4 years. Everybody who is an international student is automatically reviewed and considered for it. You don't have to apply separately, and it is merit-based. So not everyone will necessarily be awarded some monies, but you could be, based on merit, awarded up to $40,000 over 4 years. So this is all of us. We all, as Misko pointed out, have different virtual events that are happening. So we really encourage you, please, please, please come talk to us separately if you have individual questions about a particular program, if you want to learn more about how those internships work, if you want to learn more about what the feel of Davis, California is and what that college town feels like, or how you can get involved at UC Riverside or at San Diego, please, please, please come attend our different activities. You can see we all have similar types of things: chats, virtual tours, workshops, open houses. Really, many of us even have little chat bots on our website where, if it doesn't matter what time it is where you are versus where we are, it doesn't matter. You can always get your question answered. Really, 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 I want to reiterate what Misko said. We are trying to help you find the best campus for you.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, all 4 of you, for a lot of detailed information about the UC application. And we do have a few questions, and some of these have been answered online already, but for those, for the benefit of those on YouTube, we'll also cover some of those things. But I know that we do have quite a few counselors on this particular call. And so I wanted to start off with, particularly in light of all the changes and impacts of this past year, what is kind of the best way that a counselor can provide context to you all as admissions officers?
I'm happy to.
Yeah,
I'll get us started. I'll get us started, and I'm sure everybody has something to say. Probably the best thing to do, which I recommend to counselors, is if there's a particular thing which is common to your school and all of the changes or grading systems or anything that has impacted all of your students at your particular school, it's best to write a short statement that all of your students can cut and paste into the additional comments section of the UC application. That way you can be assured it's consistent, it's accurate, and every single UC campus that your students are applying to is going to see that information. So that is honestly the best thing that you can do for your students. Summarize it, short statement, give it to them, have them all put it into the application.
Great. Anything to add, the other three of you? That was good. Okay. So then I'm going to follow that up with, because I think there are questions about additional info. And there was a question specifically, you know, is there a COVID section for the UC app? And so when we talk about the additional information section, is there kind of a limit on how much room there is to say stuff? And also, are there kind of things that you should or that you should not put in the additional information section?
I can jump in there real quick. I think it's important just that, you know, as we said earlier in the session, you know, we know that this has been, you know, a global pandemic and challenge, and that every single one of us has been impacted by this in some way. So if you do want to address kind of specific challenges you face, this is the place to do it. But kind of, you know, there's in the application, it kind of says, you know, if you would like to address kind of issues related to COVID above and beyond kind of how it's all impacted all of us, this is the place to do it. And so I think when it comes to context about grading changes, any sort of significant challenges that a student or family has faced due to the pandemic, that's the place to do it, and use that space there.
Great, thank you. We had a question earlier about just, you know, you mentioned that there are a lot of applicants. And I just wanted to give you a chance to kind of talk a little bit about the structure, you know, like how are all the pieces of information being reviewed? I know, like in interacting with UC, that you have people like international specialists. And so I just wonder if there's like some kind of color you could give to kind of reassure students and families and counselors that you are looking at all these things that you're asking for.
Maybe I'll tackle that. I think it's fair to say that each campus does the comprehensive review just a little bit differently. But what we do consistently is give each application a real good amount of attention. We at Davis, we hire extra people to help us read. We train for hours and hours over a series of days. You know, we're undergoing a great deal of training, not just in how to read an application, but also to pay attention to implicit bias, things like that. So, you know, every application that comes in, we are honoring with all of our attention, to the point where by the time we're done with all those thousands of applications, I mean, I dare say, I don't know about you guys, but my eyes are practically bleeding, right? We try real hard to give everyone a fair shot. At Davis, we don't just read once, we read twice. So just in case, because, you know, India is my territory and I adore India, just because I'm the expert in that area, I may have a different type of bias, right? So I make sure that somebody else on the outside who's still familiar with the curricula are, you know, they're reading the things that I'm reading to make sure I'm not going too easy or too hard. And I cannot stress enough, we are doing everything we can to find the right fit students to admit. We are not trying to keep students out. So when we're looking at applications, we are looking for all those little bits and pieces that let us know who that student is and what they're bringing to campus. And and the potential that they're going to bring. It's something that gets us very excited about their future on our campus. Anybody else?
You covered it so well, Mitsuko. There are a couple of questions about English proficiency, and there are a large range of schools being represented on this call. Some are American schools, some are English instruction medium, but there are others that are not. And so I wanted to just kind of clarify something with English proficiency, particularly in light of COVID. I know you all mentioned Duolingo being an option that can be considered. There is a question about for IELTS and TOEFL, whether or not you consider the online versions of those. I don't know if that's consistent across the board.
It is, right, colleagues? I believe we do accept the online version.
Yes.
Okay, great. And just a reminder to everyone, it is really important for you to kind of go and look at the information on websites because there can be changes throughout. As we all know, we're kind of all waiting on news that could impact that. And so please definitely check websites and do your research as you go, because different curriculums probably have different requirements. And there were questions as well about kind of what constitutes a California resident. Mitsuko, do you want to clarify that? I know you said something on the Q&A, but.
With residency.
Oh, no, Aaron said that too. Sorry.
And Aaron, you can jump in. But when we're looking at the application, we're really not too concerned about residency as far as tuition purposes, right? And I think that when families ask about residency, they're usually thinking about what tuition am I going to be expected to pay. So in the admission process, we're not worried about the tuition. We're looking at the education. Where did the student come from? What type of educational curriculum are they doing? And with that, I'm able to decide who reads what, right? Because I want to make sure that on my staff, the applications are getting a good read, a fair read based on knowledge and experience. After that, the tuition purpose, the residency for tuition, that's determined way after the student has decided yes or no. There's a document called the Statement of Legal Residency, and it's a pretty comprehensive document that the student and their family has to fill out to show that they have, residency within the state of California. On my campus, and I'm pretty sure on all the campuses, that's not done within the admissions office. That's actually done in a separate office because it is a completely separate process.
Great.
Yeah.
Wonderful, thank you. Well, good. Well, we have just a couple of minutes left, so I just wanted to give you for a chance to kind of give some parting thoughts before we leave. And just a reminder to everyone, contact information is on this page. And so we really encourage you to reach out, especially if you're interested in a specific UC campus. There are, obviously they are one system, but there are a lot of differences. And so we want to encourage you to go to their websites, do their virtual events, and ask lots of questions. But yeah, any closing thoughts, parting thoughts from the four of you? Anybody want to start?
I dare say, oh, sorry. Well, I was just going to say, in a time of pandemic, let's just keep things in context. And I know that it's super scary, and it is the unknown. And for students who are trying to survive this is their first and hopefully only time that they're going to have to, go through the university research and application process. But, trust your instinct. Don't get caught up in rankings. Don't get caught up in brand recognition. Pay attention to where you're going to fit and be able to really relax into your education. I cannot stress that fit enough. The time passed.
I totally agree with you, Davis and Mizuku said about this. But I want to remind everybody, you are applying for next fall, not right now, not in the the blue eye of a storm. You are thinking about next year, and you know, we all have confidence that by next year, fall, everything will be returned back to normal. We can't wait to welcome you on our beautiful campuses. And we really want you to think about next year. And when everything is back to normal, when you are gonna enjoy our, you know, oranges on campus and and all the great things at the University of California system, the beautiful sunshine, the beautiful people, and the best education you can ever get. And actually, we have the best Indian food on campus too. So definitely consider all of us.
The only last thing I would say is take care of yourself. I mean, this is hard. It's a hard time. And all of us are worried about students' mental health. I know the counselors here are worried about it. I know we're worried about it. And I know all of you as students are working so hard, and we value that, and we value you, and we really want you to be healthy. So take care of yourself.
Absolutely. I think, you know, as has been said, you know, we know that this is such a challenging time for everybody. And so I just want you to know that although it may not always seem like it, and there are certainly things beyond our control in the UC system right now, but all of the decisions that we're capable of making, we're doing with students at heart. And we know that this is such a challenging time for everybody. And so just, I think hopefully it gives you some comfort to know that we're approaching this with what we hope to be your best interests in heart. We're going to be flexible. We're going to try and do what we can to make sure that we get through this very unique year together.
Thank you very much. And thank you again for waking up early to speak to our counselors and friends and families here in these regions. Thank you everyone for joining us again for Tuesday Talks, and we'll see you again next week. Take care. Bye.